Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for coming back to my art show and my art lessons. My name is Miss Rachel Simpson, and I'm part of several schools that I teach at in Whatcom County and Bellingham, Washington. And this is Rachel's Whimsical Arts, and I'm going to show you how to make salt dough recipe. And then after I show you the recipe, which you can do at home with things found in your kitchen, more than likely, then I'm going to show you how to make something out of clay, whether you have salt dough or if you have something like Model Magic and air dry clay or something like that. So this recipe, I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to post it below the video so you can take a look at the recipe and ingredients if you don't write it down. The materials and supplies that you need are a large bowl, measuring cups, this and the other kind, dry for dry and wet, half a cup of salt, 2 cups of flour. So here's my flour, 2 cups of flour, half a cup of salt right here, and then 3/4 cup of water, wax paper, I've got some under my table here, a skewer or a needle tool, something that's pointy. It could even be a pencil. Then also later you're going to want a cookie sheet and non-stick cooking spray and some paint and brushes and Mod Podge and a zipper bag to store it afterwards. So to make this, first you take the dry ingredients, which is just salt and flour, and you mix it up. First the dry ingredients, just like when you bake, which is kind of fun. I like to bake too. I like to bake and make art. But this way we get to make our own art supply, and then we get to do things with air dry clay or salt clay. Salt dough is what this is called. So after you mix up your dry ingredients, then you're gonna mix it with the water. Now when you mix it with the water, it's going to be doughy. You're gonna need to use your fingers. So here we go, stirring this up. A little liquidy at first. It's going to be lumpy. It's not going to be smooth when it's all done. Okay, so I've gotten the majority of the water mixed in. Now I'm going to scrape off the spoon to use all that extra stuff in there, and the spoon can be washed. So here's the messy part, but that's kind of fun to be messy. And when you do art, whether it's making things with clay or whether it's doing things with painting or drawing things with like charcoal and pastels, it's all messy. So I'm going to use my fingers because, as you can see, it's pretty lumpy. Reminds me of pie dough or biscuits. And it'll get stick to your fingers, but it's okay because you're going to get this on your hands anyways when you make things. So if you've ever made biscuits or tortillas or some kind of easy, quick bread, this is like that. Or pie dough too. Pie dough is kind of like this. It's feeling. All right, so it is going to be lumpy, but I want to make sure that all the little pieces stick together and I can pick it up with my hands and it won't fall apart. And you can scrape off any extra pieces of dough from your fingers. Today, besides making our dough, we're going to learn how to make rose or flower sculptures after we make it, which is fun to make flowers out of clay or salt dough. Okay, so now you can see that it's pretty uniform dough ball. And when I take a dough ball or this, or clay even, that's thicker, I twist off an amount that I want, or I pinch off an amount. Now this is probably more clay than I need, but I'm going to start with this ball, move over the bowl. So you can take this and you can basically pinch off smaller balls in the size, dough balls in the size of gumdrops, and roll them into round gumdrop shapes. And these are all going to become your flower petals. Now the nice thing about air dry clay, which I'm going to show you how to use it with that too, or this salt dough, is that it is pretty easy to stick pieces together. You just need a little bit of water. So I have a little cup of water over here that I'm going to use to stick them together with my fingers and just attaching them. So here we go. I am also going to pay attention to the size of my gumball shapes and try to get them uniform so that if they're close in the same size, then the petals will match up on the flower. And you will also be able to make, along with the flower, you'll have a little leaf for your plant or your flower. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to rub off the extra sticky dough off my fingers for a second. And now I'm going to take the first ball, gumdrop shape, and I'm going to squish it. You can also flatten it onto your wax paper on your table, which will protect your table from the dough. I also have a wooden board that I'm using here. So here is the first shape. I'm going to leave it on my table, and I'm going to make another one. So with this one, I'm going to flatten it. I like that one better than the other one. If you don't like the first shape you do, try another one. There's nothing wrong with trying it again. So I'm going to roll another one. Here we go. That's a better shape. And flatten it with the palm of my hand just a little bit. It's not too thin. And then after I get all of these round petals started, so I'm going to flatten them on the table with the wax paper or my board underneath to protect the table. Then after I get them all flattened with the palm of my hand, then I'm going to attach them. Okay. And I'm going to show you two ways to make flour. This is the first way with the salt dough. So with the salt dough, all you need to do is get your finger dipped in the water a little bit, put it on one of the two pieces, and then attach the second flattened gumdrop shape and put another one on there. So now I have three. And then I'm not gonna add too much water, because the more water I add to it, stickier it's gonna be. Okay. So after I add, as you can see, it's starting to form into a flower. Okay. One more flower petal. And the middle one, I'm gonna try and make it curve in. So here's where you would use your needle tool or your wooden skewer or a pencil. A point of a pencil would work, because I have these wooden clay tools, but a wooden pencil, the point of the pencil would work too. So now that I've attached all of my petals, I'm going to shape them a little bit and make each petal form so it curls inward a little bit and looks more like a flower. And for the last round gumdrop, I'm going to turn that into a leaf by putting a line down the middle, just like this. And then a tiny bit of water on the corner, that's just right there, and attach this to the bottom of my flower. So after you've shaped your flower, you're going to, with parents, if you're a kid and you're under 18, you want to get permission from your parents to go into the kitchen and have help maybe to turn on the oven. Because for the salt dough, not for the air dry clay, but for the salt dough clay, you do want to preheat the oven to 250 degrees and put it into the oven onto a cookie sheet. And you can spray the cookie sheet with cooking spray so it won't stick. And then put it into the oven after it's preheated at 250 for 25 to 30 minutes. and then take it out and let it cool, and then you can paint it. And we'll talk about painting and decorating in the next video, okay? So my flower is okay. I am going to get a paper towel real quick and wipe up my hand so that I can clean it up in preparation for the Model Magic or the air dry clay, which you can use air dry clay instead of salt dough to create some flowers too, okay? So, boy, that got sticky. All right. It is like dough. It is dough. It's like very sticky until I get it wiped off. All right, so many of us have seen or used in school, or maybe you haven't and you're about to use some air dry clay. Air dry clay is nice because you don't have to put it in the oven. You don't have to put it in a kiln. You can just let it dry naturally in the air to use and let it dry, and then it'll harden when it dries. Whereas the salt dough, you gotta bake it and then let it cool, and then it'll be hard. And decorations, like I said, we'll do that another day for painting them, which is fun. So this is a bag of air dry clay from Crayola. There's a few companies that make it though. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, like, you can use a picnic knife or a butter knife if you wash it afterwards. You can also tear it, okay? Now, air dry clay will warm up and you can form it in your hands. Now, because I don't want my air dry clay to get dried out, I'm gonna put this, just like I would with my leftover salt dough, put it into a Ziploc bag so that it's airtight and I can use it again. Okay. Now, the other nice thing about air dry clay is you can add a tiny bit of water to it. Not a lot of water, but a little bit. And it will help you form it and maybe hydrate it a little bit if it is a little stiff. Because I pulled this out and it felt almost like styrofoam, like lightweight styrofoam. So I'm adding a tiny bit of wetness to my fingers, and I'm getting it damp on the outside of it, but I'm not going to soak it in the water because that should not be necessary. Okay, so now that I've gotten it damp, I'm gonna roll it into balls. A little more water. And I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I'm gonna roll little gumdrop shapes, and then I'm gonna flatten them with the palm of my hand, okay? And I'm gonna do this with about 6 petals. And I'm just going to show you with a few of them, not all 6. But that's because it's taking a little bit longer for me to get it flat. Okay. So the air dry clay is cool because after you get it damp and you mold it and shape it, you just add a little bit of water on one side and you can attach 2 pieces of clay together. Okay, so now I've attached 2 pieces of clay together. You do have to add water to attach 2 pieces, whether it is the air dry clay or if it's the salt dough clay. You still want to add a tiny bit of water to attach them. If you don't put any water on there, you just put them together, they're going to fall apart when they dry or when they bake. Okay, so be sure to put that little bit of water on there. All right, so here's another way to make a flower. Make a chain of your salt dough gumdrop shapes that are flattened. And after you make a chain of, I'd say about 6 of them, maybe more if you want to make it a bigger flower, then you're going to roll it in on itself so it looks like a rose that's just partially opened. So I have attached 4 of these round flattened gumdrop shapes. And now I'm going to carefully, in the palm of my hand, so it doesn't fall apart on me like it tends to do if I'm too rough with it. I have to be gentle. I'm going to roll this in on itself and make sure that it stays together. If it needs a little more water, then I would just get my finger wet again and attach it to the water. And then after you get your rose or flower petals curled in on themselves this way by rolling it up, then you can take you can use a fork, or you can use the end of a pencil or something that's pointy like a skewer, and you can shape and smooth out and maybe add lines onto your petals, which is pretty fun to do, because this is the part where you can just take your time and sculpt and enjoy the process of playing with clay. And again, if it's cracking, it means it's too dry. You got to put a tiny bit of water on your finger and then just smooth it out. Okay? That's how you know if it's too dry. If it's too wet, it's going to get stuck to your hands. If it is the air dry clay, it's going to be sticky like glue. The salt dough is stickier by nature. It's just the way that that's made. Totally different kind of feeling. So after I attach them together, I can start to form this with my damp fingers, and I'm only getting my fingertips wet, just the tops of them right here, or with my wooden tool or my skewer, or pencil, because pencils work too. They work really well. So I'm gonna add a tiny bit of water, shape these petals, and as you can see, it is starting to turn into a flower. But this will take me some time to work it and make it look a little more like a flower. And then after I'm satisfied with my petal shapes, okay, I am gonna make a leaf because I think flowers, whenever you see them outside, or even if you see them as decoration or as art, they usually have a leaf with them too. So there we go. So I'm gonna roll this up, make sure it's not too dry, so get some water on it. And then I'm gonna take my shape, which I have made this into kind of an oval shape now. And I'm going to take my oval shape and flatten it like this. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit of water on one end, okay, and attach it to the bottom. So here's the top of my flower. Here's the bottom. I'm going to attach it to the bottom of my flower. Now this leaf on the bottom of the flower is actually going to be what it sits on. And then here's where I would decorate my leaf. I could take my wooden tool or my pencil and lean the tip of it into the crevice, so it's got a crevice in that leaf. I can add, or with a fork even, you can also use a fork. That fork tried to fall in there. You can use the tip of a fork, and you can use the tines on it to make creases for your leaf shape. Okay. Now, after you attach this all together, you're going to want to have it set somewhere safe and sound to dry. Air dry clay can take anywhere from 10 to 14 days, so up to 2 weeks, for it to completely dry out. So that means I'm going to put it on my plate and have it sit on a safe shelf somewhere where no one's going to disturb it, and let it just air dry out on the counter, on the shelf, for about 2 weeks. Maybe mark it on my calendar so I don't forget. And then when 2 weeks has come up, it should be dry enough that you can pick it up and it won't fall apart on you if you just pick it up carefully. If you drop it though, it could still break because it is still fragile. But then we will paint them and decorate them, and I'll show you different ways to paint them with different kinds of paints, not just acrylic paints, but there's other ways to paint them. Okay? So thank you for coming and visiting me at Rachel's Whimsical Arts for my video. Again, my name is Miss Rachel Simpson, and you're welcome to follow me on YouTube. You can also find me and follow me on my pages on Instagram and Facebook for Rachel's Whimsical Art. And I don't know, I'm so happy that I can have some of you come and join me and can see each other. Well, you can see me and you can leave comments and feedback, please, below my video. I'd love to hear from you and see what you're making. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.